another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast. Wherever you are, whenever you are, whether you're listening or watching, I hope you're having a great week. And today, I'm excited to have a coffee chat with Dr. Nicole Kolacz, the CNO from Aultman Hospital in Canton, Ohio. So welcome to this show, Nicole.
Hi, Renee. I'm super excited to be here today. I think the world of you, so I'm honored being with you.
Yeah, well, I think the world of you too. Nicole and I have been working for, I don't know, Nicole, has it been a year? At least, I think.
Yeah, at least maybe two, close to two even.
Okay.
When I first discovered your work with bullying and instability, and we brought that here to the Aultman campus, and now we're...
Yes. I remember when we first met and you were, and this is very classic, people will reach out to say, okay, we're dealing with this, what can we do about it? And what we've done at Aultman is that we have an online program. It's our Eradicating Bullying and Instability program. We offer this in a variety of ways. One of the ways, and this is how, Aultman has joined us, is really as a cohort. And we've done now multiple cohorts, and it's really giving the leaders the knowledge, the skills, and tools that they need to actually do something about disruptive behaviors. And I don't know, I've had so many conversations with your leaders and obviously with you, Nicole, that, Aultman is part of our family now with the Healthy Workforce Institute. This is how we really feel about you and about your team. It's just been really nice to see the improvements over the last, 1.5, 2 years. And so very grateful for our partnership.
Thank you. The feelings are mutual. Thank you.
Good. Well, to tell you a little bit more about Nicole is what I would consider and others would consider, especially her team, a true servant leader, and she leads by example. And one of the things that I so appreciate about Nicole as I've gotten to know her is her insane passion for developing her leaders. And what I also find very endearing is that, Nicole, you started your career as a nursing assistant when you were in nursing school, didn't you?
I did at this campus many years ago.
Oh, really?
Yes. Well, I was in nursing school. I worked here as a nurse aide. I jokingly tell everyone I was 5 years old when I started. So,
of course.
Right.
Well, I've always been, I don't know that envious or jealous or, is the right word, but I never worked as a nursing assistant. I went right from, I guess I worked as a medical assistant in a clinic before I became a nurse, but I always recognized how important it is to have some exposure into what, especially the hospital setting, is really like before you become a nurse. And I did not have that experience. And I don't know if I did, if it would have changed anything, but I just think it's a smart thing to do. And so when I read that about you, I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Again, Nicole is 100% committed to lifelong learning for herself and for her team. And she's also involved in the Ohio Organization of Nurse Leaders organization, which they're my people. Okay, all the ONLs across the country, this is a group of nurse leaders who are really out there trying to make healthcare a better place. And I really appreciate that good work that you're also doing, Nicole. So thank you. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, because I've gotten to know Nicole, one of the things that I recognize is critically important to cultivating and sustaining a healthy work culture is that first of all, you've got to equip your leaders, and Nicole's already doing that. Okay. You've got to equip your leaders, but you also have to create space for those leaders to come together and create this safe place for them that they can be honest. They can share their challenges. They can be vulnerable with each other. They can give each other feedback. And you've done this so well. So I'd like to start our conversation learning a little bit more on how you're doing that.
Sure. I would say it's a journey, number one. We are never fully there. I think it's something that we're always working toward. I think it starts with our leadership. It starts with me, having to take the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes your way, and not being reactive to it, processing that, modeling the behavior that you want to see, creating that environment and that forum where it's okay to fail and make mistakes. I'd be the first to tell you we trial a lot of things here.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Small tests of change, and, I'm not afraid to say that didn't work or we need to pivot and move something different because as we've done it, we've learned from that. But I think it's, having the respect for the team. We all bring something different to the table. So I really appreciate their viewpoint, what they bring to the table. Having, I don't want a bunch of people like me around the table. I think it's easy to put people like you around you. That's our natural tendency. But I think it's real important for me to have people that aren't like me, that are going to be honest and give me that feedback and help me to help them. We get through the good days and the bad days all together at the end of the day. And it really takes the team to do that.
So I'm curious, because what we have found in some of the research that we've done, we've asked questions about, okay, who are the disruptors? Who's behaving badly in healthcare? And we ask leaders. Is it their employees? Is it other people's employees? Is it physicians, providers? Is it patients and their families? Or is it other leaders? And I was surprised initially that, okay, the number one, my employees, okay, because that's what everybody, I'm dealing with my employees who are not always behaving professionally. But the second highest was other leader. And what I find in all the work that I'm doing out there is that it always comes up, what if the leaders are part of the problem, the leadership team? Because I'm thinking of the classic, okay, I used to work as a neurosurgical step-down unit nurse. And we had a neuro ICU and a neuro med surg floor. And each of those three departments had a unit director. And let me tell you, they did not get along. And there was always passive aggressive behaviors and throwing each other under the bus. But at the leadership meeting, they were, on their best behavior. We know this is a problem, yet you've created a space for them to come together, to be vulnerable, to admit that they're struggling, and to maybe give each other some feedback. But I'm sure when you started doing this, people didn't just immediately say, oh my gosh, yeah, hey, if you have any feedback for me or anything with my team, please tell me. How did you get them past that initial guardedness, I think, that a lot of the leaders have when giving honest feedback to people?
Sure. I think that takes time. It just takes time to cultivate those relationships. I think I'm a big connector. When you look at some of the different leadership voices that are out there, one of my voices is a connector.
Love it.
Yeah. So I think, you got to create the places for them to come together as a team. So, I think we have a leadership team huddle with all of the leadership team in my division. We do that every 2 weeks. We huddle. I love it when it's in person. We try to do in person. We have an online option as well. But I think creating those places for them to come together and connect more. I think when people are together more, they tend to behave a little, better, or they work better together. I should say not behave, but they work better together.
Yeah.
Because they see each other as a true teammate. And that's really what I want people to see each other as, true teammate. I know we have titles and there's a hierarchy, but we are all here together to move the needle where we need to move it with quality or experience or engagement. I also think too, being vulnerable a little bit yourself and saying that you don't always have all the answers. I know you did a call for us on Nurses Week. That was very kind of you.
Mm-hmm.
My team loved that, by the way. And I think someone brought up a scenario, and I think you had said, it's okay that you don't have all the answers. And I was just getting ready to echo. I think I had my hand up to say, healthcare is complex. It takes a team. And there's many times I have to think about it, or I have to reach out to others and consult and say, what do we do here? Talk it through.
Do you find that hard? Do you find that hard to say, because you're the chief nursing officer, You're supposed to be the all-knowing, the all-solving, problem solver. You find it hard to just say, either I don't know, and there's the standard, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. But just, say, you know what, I don't know, or yeah, that's not a strength of mine, or like, do you find it hard to admit that? Because I do. I will tell you, I do. I struggle with it, and I have to, manage myself because I think I should have all the answers.
I do. Like you, I struggle with it, but I also have realized, I put people around me as my team that have strengths that I don't have. And so I will tap into their strengths. And, we're a team. So how do we get there together? So it is hard because I think, to your point, leaders are always tasked with knowing every answer. Every policy, every answer, just rattling it off. And it's a complex world we're in right now. And it takes all of us together, different viewpoints. Sometimes people think of things that maybe I wouldn't think of.
Right. And it reminds me of, I read something, I fall in love with it, and then I repeat it ad nauseum. Ad nauseum. Somebody corrected me. It's not at nauseum. It's ad nauseum. AD. Okay. Ad nauseum. One of my things that I'm in love with right now is this whole concept of lateral agility. And lateral agility is really an athletic term. And if you look it up, it basically teaches you how to bob and weave. But lateral agility is so useful in healthcare and understanding that, it's not just you. It's not just you and your department. It's the whole organization. And the part that I think is incredibly powerful is understanding collaborative problem solving. And that really speaks to what you're talking about. You don't have all the answers. You may not be the best one. So who are your key stakeholders? Who do you ask for help? And knowing that ahead of time, I think is incredibly important, especially as a leadership team. And so I'm wondering, Nicole, do you, as part of this opportunity where you bring your leaders together, is there any part of that where the leaders are getting to know each other, either, building relationships with each other, just getting to know each other on somewhat of a personal level, but then also getting to know who's good at what? Because I know I'm certainly not good at everything, but thank goodness I have people on my team who are way better at things than I am.
I think as we work through different challenges, they learn kind of, strengths. And if I look at my leadership team, and I'm sure this could be applied to everyone. If you just take a look at your team, you have novice to expert, right? On your, you think better. And I think, we have a lot, we probably have a fair number of experienced nurse leaders, but we have a good number of novice that became nurse leaders during COVID or right after COVID. And that was, I don't even want to use that word, but it's the and it's created what we are, where we are at today. But I think learning skill sets and seeing other leaders in action and, kind of knowing the strengths when we work on certain projects. I love to give, either leaders or up and coming leaders that I know have the desire to be a leader, to give them opportunity to do a project or an initiative. And you really kind of try to be intentional about the skill set that you're matching up because you want it to be successful for so they build that confidence. But I think bringing them together, kind of working through projects together collectively as a team, we'll jokingly say, something about a team member like, oh, that's their skill set. So I think they learn that over time.
Sure. Well, and I think too, there's that whole self-awareness.
Right.
Every single one of us, if you're in a leadership role, okay, and beyond, but especially if you're in a leadership role, if you haven't figured out what you're good at, what you're not good at, how you process information, you make quick decisions, or do you need time to process? And if you don't know your communication style, you don't know how other people perceive you, gosh, you got to start there, because by knowing, again, what you're so good at and what you're not good at, going to help you then when you have these projects, when you're doing these tests of change, that you can say, you know what, I'll tackle that because this is what I'm good at, or, oh no, somebody else needs to do that part because I know myself, I'm a better speaker than I am a writer. And writing, I'm a good creative writer, but I am not a good scholarly writer. It's embarrassing to me, actually.
I don't.
Not so good. So when I'm asked to write an article, I always want to partner with someone. And I let them know right from the beginning, I will write, but you need to make it pretty. Okay, like you need to fix it. And I will not take offense if I get it back from you and it's all red, the marks from track changes. So would you say that, especially you mentioned you have new leaders, and these new leaders learned during, global pandemic. I'm actually going to put this in the show notes. I had a conversation with Michelle Conley. She's the regional chief nursing officer at Jefferson. We'll put her link in the show notes. But we talked specifically about this. So they learned in crisis mode how to be leaders. And now that we're not in crisis mode anymore, knock on wood, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to manage. So especially with your newer leaders, how are you creating, the space for them to now say, I don't know this, or I need help with this, or I'm really struggling with that? Did you find that your experienced leaders are like taking them under their wing now, or not?
I do think that they take them under their wing. I also think they've had to go through, the pandemic as well. I think we're in a place right now where we're really trying to kind of pivot past the pandemic. I'd say just how do we, the agility, the bobs and weaves you're talking about, how do we kind of do that reset with the other challenges that we face. And I think it, kind of building the basics back again. Being available. I'm very visible as a leader. I'm out and about and I'm rounding on staff, but also checking in on leaders. I do care an awful lot about my team. People need to be seen and heard and feel appreciated. And so, I think tend to notice when, if you know your people, you tend to notice when something's not right. And so I work through, their leader, or, I'll just meet with them and, reach out and kind of say, what's going on? How can I help? Leadership's hard, but it doesn't need to be that way. We have to support each other and create that environment that's safe and help them to progress their career. We can't lose our leaders.
Oh my God.
The work AONL is doing right now, I think is so impactful as we, work towards our future and creating what that's going to be for us. So I really feel just creating that environment for them and, being a leader that cares and really, trying to put them in their best light to build that confidence, especially for a new leader, and kind of where they should focus and what their effort should, where they should put their time right now. And we know that frontline leaders' job is the hardest job.
Yeah.
So, right.
I remember, being a frontline manager, and I'm sure everybody's heard my story by now, but I lasted 14 months. I had no idea what I was doing. And there was nothing to equip me with, again, the knowledge, the skills, tools to address disruptive behaviors, because it was the department that had the worst reputation of any department in the entire, 700-bed hospital. And so, quit. We talk a lot about staff turnover, nurse turnover. We're starting finally to talk about leadership turnover. And you're right, Nicole, AONL is doing a great job in really taking a look at the scope of work of that frontline manager and the skills that they need now versus the skills even when you and I were, frontline managers. They're different because the workforce is different. So I'd love your thoughts on what does it take to be a good leader in today's environment. We could probably have, 3 more episodes just on that topic alone, but I'd really love your input.
Well, I think, I'd start out by saying probably good support system, whatever that means. That's something different for everyone. I am beyond blessed to have support at home and in the workplace. I think adaptability comes to mind. Being a flexible leader. And I think about leadership styles. And I know you mentioned I lean more towards servant, but I think situational leadership comes to mind. And I think you have to, again, using the word pivot or bob and weave, as you said, sometimes your leadership style has to adapt a little bit to the situation that you're in. you always have to be authentic. There's another, as a leader, authentic and true to yourself. But you also sometimes have to, think about the message that you're delivering or where you're trying to go and what that requires, where you have to move to as a leader. I'd say energy, enthusiasm, passion for what you get to do. I love what I get to do every day, even on the hard days. I think as leaders, and maybe this is a nursing, we beat ourselves up. It's never enough. All the things that didn't go right. I just told a leader last week, we were text messaging and she sent me a thank you text. And, when we're texting back and forth, it's kind of going towards all the things that aren't going right. And I said, you need to spend as much time today thinking about all the things that did go right as you did that didn't go right. And she said, wow, okay, thank you for giving me that perspective and kind of resetting me, to think that way. Because we do need to spend, in all fairness, we need to spend the equal amount of time. If you're gonna think about all the things that didn't go right for 10 minutes, then you need to spend 10 minutes thinking about all the things that went right and the impact that you made, because the impact is far greater than probably people realize. I'd say people are at the passion as a leader. The people are our number one priority. They have to be our priority. Creating that trust, walking the talk, being visible and recognizing, meeting people where they're at, what's important to them. As a senior leader, getting to know your team, their names and things about them, I think that's impactful because I do care about them. And that, I think goes a long way. Continuous learning comes to mind and growing. Learning never ends.
Well, I know this about you, that you are sort of a lifelong student. And that's why I think you and I get along so well, because, okay, I'm going on vacation and we're going to a tropical island in the Caribbean. And you basically just lay around at the pool or on the beach, the swim up bar, all that good stuff. So, well, first of all, I don't know how I'm going to just relax, but
Right.
It's my goal to just go and do nothing. But I won't do nothing. I have probably 12 books lined on this. I have all these things in my computer. I'm like, ooh, I want to read that. Ooh, I want to learn that. My husband and I are even talking about learning Italian because we're going to go to Italy next year. I cannot not learn. And you are the exact same way. So you're always learning something, and you're that, role model for your leaders, because one of the things that I know you do in your leadership sessions, the groups, when you bring them together, is you talk about blog articles, podcasts, books. So can you talk a little bit more about how so I know you're a lifelong learner, how you're influencing your leaders to do the same?
Sure. I guess I'll go back to first and foremost, setting an example.
Yep.
Learning never ends. I get in front of our new hire nurses. I meet with them all when they are onboarding, and I that method right from the very beginning. I talk to them about themselves as continuous learners and that they've got to continue to learn. But I also talk about we are a teaching facility here, and that we see residents and students and nursing students here, and that we have to teach back. We have to give back and teach. I think for my leaders, one of the things that we started the end of last year was something called a learning leaders group.
Wow.
So this started because I think we were kind of in the, leadership is peaks and valleys. We were probably more in the valley. And I found myself not reading as much, not listening to podcasts like I had done before. And for me, those things, learning really kind of filled my bucket. It's one of those things that, filled my bucket, reading book, and I felt like we need to bring our team together and let's talk about it, because you read something and you cement the principle better when you can talk about it with the team or with another person, right?
Absolutely.
So we brought this group together the end of last year. It's not mandatory. We meet every other week as we can, and I push out a blog article. We've read some of your material, or listened to something that you've done, or I think of some other leaders, or we're looking maybe doing a book now. So we push it out. The group gets it. They read it. We come back or listen to it. We come back as a team, and then we just kind of talk through it. What was everyone's impressions of it? We start applying it. What was the one takeaway?
Love it.
And I'll admit, as a leader, it's hard to get there some days. But once you're there, I mean, it can't help put a smile on your face. It fills your bucket beyond measure. And I know it's very meaningful and impactful to have, leaders around the table and really being vulnerable sometimes, talking about what's not as a leader yourself, where you could have done better or, gosh, I learned something here. But just being authentic.
Right. A resource that we have called 5 Common Mistakes Leaders Make. And it's one of my favorite conversations to have with leaders because I've made every one of those mistakes. And chances are, I'm pretty confident they've all made these mistakes too. And actually, the resource, I'll put a link in the show notes. But what I love about learning something is, as you said, you learn something and then you reflect and you say, ooh, this is the way I was handling these situations, but I just learned a better way to handle it. And then you go and you do that better way. And when you have that structure where you're meeting every other week, and what I think is really important too, it's not all the same thing. It's not like, oh, every other week we're going to, read a blog article or we're going to listen to, like you're mixing it up. Is to get them on that path of always looking at, here's maybe a solution, or here's sometimes books or articles or podcasts are more of a mindset shift.
Right.
They help you think differently about being a leader. But others, it's mechanic. Do these things, very practical thing. And to be able to have that space where they can come together and that ongoing learning and not make it mandatory. This should be something you're pushing. So I have a push and pull strategy when it comes to learning. The organization needs to push content out to their people. Okay. And that's what you're doing, Nicole. You're pushing it out. You're creating a space for it. You're saying, okay, this is what we're going to be looking at. But these leaders need to pull it too. They can't just rely on you. And so are you creating opportunities for your leaders to actually bring content to that meeting so that it isn't just you?
Yeah. I encourage them. A couple of them have articles like, hey, let's use this one at the next one. One of the leaders just was on vacation and read a book. And so the one that was on my list, it's on my list to read, and was kind of talking through with the group because it segued into our article that we were reading for the week. And we talked about the group. Maybe that's the book we've been talking about a book. Maybe that's the book we should read. So they definitely feed me like, here's a podcast here, and I incorporate those in. I'll also add too, as a leader, a lot of our articles or topics or podcast videos are, they're about leadership, but sometimes too, we incorporate things like self-care or just, how to set boundaries or how important sleep is, or because a healthy leader is a good leader, right? You got to be healthy yourself. And so, I think of time management, so we thread different themes throughout depending on kind of what comes my way or what someone sends to me. So
you said something that's really important to consider. Okay, we're talking about learning. We're talking about creating space for your leaders to come together and learn. And when you think of all of the demands that are placed on our leaders today, you've got HCAP score, you've got employee engagement, you've got, it's so overwhelming. So the focus may be on helping them to be a leader who does all of that well, right? But if you're not including content related to how they can take care of themselves, and even things like you said, time management, which I look at sort of energy management, like
right.
how are we, protecting our energy? You're missing a big piece of it because people say, oh, work-life balance. There's no work-life balance.
Right.
I look at it as work-life integration. But
right.
how do you, help them to better take care of themselves? And, as you know, Nicole, as part of our EBI, our cohorts, everybody's invited to a monthly live culture call. And in June, so this is June when we're recording this, I wasn't able to facilitate that call. And somebody on my team, Diane Salter, who is fantastic. Okay. I always have such confidence when I know she's going to take over the call. She asked me ahead of time, would it be okay if I talked about like well-being for the leader? And I said, 100%, yeah, they need this. Because every single month we talk about some aspect of a healthy work culture, addressing disruptive behaviors. We talk about a lot of the mechanics of it, how to do this. But it was so well received. These leaders were basically like, you could tell they were struggling with this. And she talked about, it wasn't just, okay, everybody meditate for 5 minutes. That's not what self-care and well-being is. It could be a part of it. And keeping that in mind, that it's not just, we're going to talk about specific things that are going to help you do your job better. We're going to also include things that are going to help you to be a happier human being and feel good about the work that you do. And yeah, you're doing such a great job with that. All right.
I think always space to do, more there. I think we have a shared governance council for nursing leaders as well. And that's my chair and co-chair this year are going to use the AONL work.
Oh, good.
As kind of a way to start some dialogue with nurse leaders on what are some things we can commit to across the organization to kind of create that healthy work environment for leaders as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's logical that you would include, your shared governance, because I always say it starts with the leaders, but it's not just the leaders. You have to involve the people who are on the front line, and I love the whole concept of professional governance. So it makes perfect sense. Okay. We've talked about a lot of different things. I want to start wrapping up by looking at what are the skills that today's leader needs to be successful. And you've talked about having a good support system and being flexible. And we talked about having that positive energy and, the ability, to kind of bob and weave and not beat yourself up, get the help that you need. But let's say we have an executive or maybe a frontline manager who's listening to this right now, and everything that you're talking about is resonating with them, but they have nothing in place. Where would you recommend that they start?
That's a great question, Renee. I think, that it's a little bit individual for everyone. But I think there's always, I look for me, I think about podcasts. I have a leadership journal myself. I listen to podcasts, or I watch a TED Talk, or I read a book, and I keep a journal, paper and pencil, old school, and I'm electronic all the way, but just something about writing it. I always think back to just surrounding yourself to people that you aspire to be like, that saying, the 5 people that you're like, or the 5 people around you, or kind of, want to put 5 good people around you. And I think there's always someone in your organization, that you can connect to identify someone who maybe in your mind is, kind of, once they have it all together, or kind of, someone that you look up to. And in my career, I've kind of always been a people watcher and looking at leaders, how they lead, the good and the bad, so to speak. And, reaching out and just kind of seeing what they're doing, and, maybe taking a walk. I know we do a lot of walks here at lunchtime, just, hey, whoever can come down, meet in the circle, and we go for a walk and we talk. And I think, those might be good ways to start. Following some leaders on social media, just kind of getting those pieces of leadership incorporated. But I think there's always someone in your organization that is like-minded, a learner wanting to grow as a leader. And maybe that's a good starting point. And together, looking at some blog articles, or reading a book together, or listening to a podcast, and kind of just talking through it. We learn through each other. And that's the best learning, when you can apply those concepts to your everyday work.
And I think you're right. It can just start very small. Perhaps someone else that you either aspire to be like, or that you think is also, a big learner. Maybe they talk about, oh, I read this article, or, hey, I just listened to this podcast. And it just starts maybe with 2 people. And then it can grow from there. What you're also talking about is, as a leader, you need to pull the information. Don't wait. So if your organization doesn't do what Nicole does by having it every other week, we get together, you can start it yourself. Don't wait for that to happen, but start pulling that information, because that's what's going to help you to be a better leader, so especially in today's, challenging healthcare environment. And Nicole, I just want to thank you for being on the show and for sharing your great work at Aultman Hospital. again, you're like our family here. We love you and the work, that Elizabeth has done. It's just been really great to spend time with your leaders. I've talked to so many of them individually and the coaching that we do with them. And we are just very grateful that you recognize that cultivating a healthy work culture doesn't just happen, by default. Like, you have to work at it. And you're certainly doing that at Aultman. So thank you so much for your good work.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor being here. We love you. We love HWI and everything that you're doing. I think I've told you before, I really, really love and admire the work that you're doing for nursing as a profession. I think the work we do in our organization is important, but as leaders, we also have commitment as a professional to advance us professionally for the future. And I really feel that you are doing a tremendous job at that for us. So I value and respect you beyond.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Just made my day. Leaders should support each other, and celebrate each other and recognize each other, not, be so cruel to each other. And again, we have really important work to do. And this work is important not only to me personally, but to the future of nursing in our profession. So it's really been an honor working with you and your team and some of the other groups that we've been working with, because again, we have important work to do. So I want to thank you again for all the great work that you're doing. And for all of you who are listening right now or watching, thank you for pulling good content into your world, because that's how we get better. You just can't, through osmosis, learn how to be a better leader. You have to seek out the advice and wisdom from other people. And that's why I love having this podcast, because I learn from other people as well. And if you're interested in learning more about the program that Aultman Hospital is involved in, I'll have a link to that in the show notes. We can certainly help you as we've helped Aultman. And so if you like this podcast, please do not forget to rate it, give us a review, and share it with your colleagues who may need to hear this right now. So thank you again for being here. Take care, everyone.